that to see some Mahomes in Caleb Williams.
Fit into the Commanders team. I'm here now. I can't wait to get to work.
And he said he's the type of guy who could be a franchise cornerstone. He's a guy who's drawn comparisons to Justin Herbert and Josh Allen.
Ladies and gentlemen, the first round of the NFL draft has officially concluded, which means we get to bring you guys our inaugural biggest winners and losers list. Now, a huge disclaimer, it's impossible to determine which of these prospects are going to be successful and failures immediately after the NFL draft. A lot of this analysis is based upon the value that we placed on these players before the draft process. And there are even some instances where I'll tell you straight up that I can't determine if a player is a winner or a loser. And the best example of this is none other than our very first biggest winners and losers list during the 2021 NFL draft. If you look at it, we called Mac Jones a huge winner back then, but unfortunately 3 years later, and his career took a significantly different turn. So before we get to the content, we're on a huge push to 900k subscribers. We're trying to make a push to eventually getting to 1 million subscribers. So if you aren't subscribed, make sure you subscribe and turn on our notifications to help the channel grow. You could always change your mind later. Now that we get all that out of the way, work! Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? The very first winner on this list is a pretty obvious one, but we gotta set it in stone officially. Caleb Williams and the Chicago Bears. Now, typically I would say either the prospect is a winner or the team's a winner. In this instance, both sides are a winner. If you take a look at the way the Chicago Bears got Caleb Williams, whether you believe he's the next coming of Patrick Mahomes or not, the fact that the Chicago Bears leveraged the 2023 NFL Draft's first overall pick into DJ Moore, the 9th overall pick last year, a 2nd round pick last year, number 1 overall pick this year, and a 2025 2nd round pick, automatically makes this a huge victory for the Chicago Bears. They didn't decide to go out and get their quarterback immediately. They could have drafted Bryce Young last year and had him throw to fairly below average wide receivers. But instead, they were patient. They built up the other aspects of their team and they leveraged their position to the best of their ability. And fortunately, the Carolina Panthers were the worst team in the NFL this year. The Chicago Bears gave Justin Fields a whole season to determine that he was the guy. You either believe that Justin Fields didn't make gigantic strides in his game this year, or you feel like the opportunity to select a potentially transcendent talent is too good to pass up. At the end of the day, you want to put your rookie quarterback in the best possible position to succeed. It's very rare for a quarterback to be selected with the number 1 overall pick and have 2 incredible wide receiver ones to throw the football to. And in the case of the Chicago Bears, they've built the perfect team around Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams will have DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, and Cole Kmet to throw the football to. They'll have DeAndre Swift to hand the football off to, and they already have an up-and-coming defense featuring the likes of Montez Sweat that they traded for last year, in addition to Jalen Johnson, who a year ago was demanding a trade, but recently agreed to a contract extension with the Chicago Bears. A huge part of becoming a Super Bowl contender is making sure you don't overpay for talent and making sure you leverage your assets into the best team possible. And in the case of the Chicago Bears, they did just that. For Caleb Williams, it's very rare to go into a situation where your team is practically complete. In the case of the Chicago Bears, it's rare to have your offense 75% built and then draft a quarterback with the number 1 overall pick with a fresh rookie scale contract. If Caleb Williams is as good as advertised, then you can expect the Chicago Bears to, at the very minimum, make it to the wild card this year and even potentially win the NFC North. But that'd be very challenging to determine now, considering the fact that the Detroit Lions and the up-and-coming Green Bay Packers are also in their division alongside with the Minnesota Vikings. Needless to say, I give the Chicago Bears an A+ for this draft pick because they put their franchise cornerstone QB in the best position to succeed, as opposed to throwing him to the wolves the way the Carolina Panthers did. If Caleb Williams is a huge winner for going number 1 overall to the Chicago Bears, what about Jaden Daniels going number 2 overall to the Washington Commanders? Like I said in my Caleb Williams' take, it's very normal for these quarterbacks to be drafted into situations where they don't really have many weapons to throw to. But just like Caleb Williams, who has Keenan Allen and DJ Moore to throw the football to, Jaden Daniels goes into a situation where the entire offense was practically built for him. You have Terry McLaurin, who is going to be your wide receiver one, Jahan Dotson, who is capable of being a wide receiver one. On top of that, the Washington Commanders hired Cliff Kingsbury as an offensive coordinator who has experience working with Caleb Williams at USC, but Kyler Murray at the professional level, and Patrick Mahomes at Texas Tech. They even got a quarterback who was in a very similar position to him 9 years ago to be his mentor. Marcus Mariota, former number 2 overall pick who also won the Heisman Trophy, was drafted in the 2015 NFL Draft by the Tennessee Titans. I know recently he gave an interview where it looks like he's been playing for 20 years, but no matter what you say, this is a very sweet situation to go into if you are Jaden Daniels. And the Commanders didn't stop there. In free agency, they went all out, signing Austin Eckler, Zach Ertz, and Tyler Biadasz to help offensively. And their head coach, Dan Quinn, was able to lure multiple of his disciples over to the Washington Commanders to form an identity defensively. Dante Fowler, Bobby Wagner, Dorrance Armstrong highlight some of the defensive acquisitions the Commanders made. Now, I know the Philadelphia Eagles are trending upwards, but the Dallas Cowboys are currently on a downward trend. And if Jaden Daniels could fulfill his potential as the starting quarterback of the Washington Commanders, then don't be surprised if the Commanders are able to sneak into the wild card this upcoming year. Either way, I think this is the most promising situation that any Washington Commanders quarterback has ever been placed in. I've never seen a Washington Commanders QB get placed in a situation where they have multiple options on offense to go to, whether it's at the X wide receiver, the Y wide receiver, or the Z wide receiver. But in addition to that, having a pair of running backs that they could depend on in Austin Eckler and Brian Robinson, and an offensive coordinator that has experience working with quarterbacks that are of a similar archetype. I give the Washington Commanders an A+ for this selection, and if I'm Jaden Daniels, I'm very excited to go to the Commanders despite the history they had before the Josh Harris era. So now we're going to get to our very first loser of the NFL draft. Now I want to further emphasize the point that just because I'm saying he's a loser now doesn't mean he's a colossal bust or anything. This is the reason why the games are played. It's just when you take a look at Drake May's situation as the number 3 overall pick for the Patriots, you gotta feel nervous for the guy. The Patriots still don't have an offensive line. Drake May's top targets are going to be Kendrick Bourne, KJ Osborne, and don't get me wrong, Demario Douglas was starting to trend up for the New England Patriots before he got injured, but you're essentially throwing Drake May into the same exact situation that Mac Jones was in. And for that reason, I'm a little bit concerned. The reason I'm saying Drake May is a loser is obviously the ideal situation for him would have been the Chicago Bears or the Washington Commanders. But at the same time, if you're the New England Patriots, Drake May wasn't plan A no matter what Gerard Mayo was saying.
Also told me they have narrowed down their list from their top pick to about 6 prospects they would love to choose from, but all eyes are on quarterback. And I want to focus on North Carolina's Drake May for a moment because Mayo really raved about him when we talked today. He talked about how smart he is, how competitive he is. He really described his family. He said it's in his blood. He comes from a group of champions, a group of winners. And the last thing he said was the upside, which some people have as his first thing. And he said he's the type of guy who could be a franchise cornerstone. He's a guy who's drawn comparisons to Justin Herbert and Josh Allen. Maybe he's a quarterback.
I firmly believe that the New England Patriots plan A was to trade back from the number 3 overall pick and try to build up the other aspects of their team because they need help in almost every offensive category. But don't get me wrong, we've seen quarterbacks go into situations where offensively there was little to be desired. I mean, look at what CJ Stroud was able to do for the Houston Texans last year. The Houston Texans completely overhauled their situation just by drafting well last year, and the same could happen for the New England Patriots. If I had to quantify on a scale of 1 to 10 how big of a loser Drake May and the Patriots are, I'd say it's about a 4 or a 5. It's not like they made a Carolina Panthers size mistake the way the Panthers did last year selecting Bryce Young where they didn't have any other assets, but at least on paper the situation in New England isn't as exciting or as admirable as say the Washington Commanders or the Chicago Bears or if the Minnesota Vikings were to trade up for you. This isn't to say that Drake May is destined to fail with the New England Patriots, but I feel like it would have been a little bit wiser to keep Mac Jones for another year and try to figure out the other aspects of the New England Patriots before drafting a brand new quarterback to start all over again and put him in the exact same situation. But for all you know, this could be the second coming of CJ Stroud. We've seen instances where the right quarterback could elevate the talent of all the players around him. Plus, Mike Gesicki and Devontae Parker, roster who had no idea how to separate it all whatsoever are gone. Bill Belichick is gone. It's a brand new front office and possibly a brand new scheme. But we can all agree this wasn't plan A for the New England Patriots. I'm not saying it's a horrific pick. I'm just saying that the Patriots would have probably preferred something else to happen, and that's understandable. Probably the biggest winner of this year's NFL draft is Kyler Murray. During this time last year, we were wondering if the Arizona Cardinals were going to end up with the #1 overall pick, in which case the Cardinals would be in a very difficult situation. Would they move on from Kyler Murray and select Caleb Williams? Well, Kyler Murray made sure to come back to ensure that the Cardinals wouldn't get the #1 overall pick. And to be honest, if you're a Cardinals fan, which one would you prefer? Let me know in the comment section down below, but it's a hypothetical at this point. Instead of the Cardinals potentially taking a brand new QB, they're in the best possible situation to select the top non-quarterback prospect in the entire NFL. An individual that is going to make Kyler Murray's life on the football field significantly easier and is going to be on a rookie scale contract until Kyler Murray is a 10-year veteran. The Arizona Cardinals select an individual that I think is the most can't miss prospect in the entire NFL draft, Marvin Harrison Jr. If I had to compare Marvin Harrison Jr. to any player from years past, it would either be Julio Jones or his father, only he's 4 inches taller, which is an incredible comparison. Marvin Harrison Jr. was raised by a NFL Hall of Famer who played the same position as him. He dominated at Ohio State University, who by the way has a remarkable track record with inserting wide receivers in the NFL draft, especially recently, from Chris Olave to Jackson Smith-Njigba to Garrett Wilson, and now Marvin Harrison Jr. I think this is an incredible situation for both the Cardinals and Marvin Harrison Jr. Very rare that you have a Pro Bowler throwing you the football immediately when you enter the NFL. I'm expecting Marvin Harrison Jr. to get a ton of volume in his first season with the Cardinals, and I give the Cardinals an A+ for this draft pick. It's a no-brainer. Up next, we have Michael Penix, who might be the biggest winner in this entire draft class. Now, I know what you might be thinking,
Mike, what are you talking about? The Falcons made a horrific mistake with that pick.
Yeah, but you have to see this from Michael Penix's perspective. This man is currently 23 years old. He's about to sign a 4-year, $22.8 million contract that is fully guaranteed with a $13.4 million signing bonus, all to just ride the bench for the next couple of seasons. By the time Kirk Cousins' contract expires, Michael Penix Jr. will be 28 years old. And it gets even crazier. Apparently, Kirk Cousins had no idea that the Atlanta Falcons wanted to do this. I mean, I think this deserves its own video, but I had to put this in here. I'm going to try to bring you guys that video really soon. Another huge winner in this year's NFL draft is none other than Daniel Jones. Originally, there were rumors that the New York Giants were interested in trading up to select JJ McCarthy. Apparently, that was all a smokescreen because their primary target was Malik Neighbors. I said this over and over again as we were streaming. This is a huge W, not only for Daniel Jones, but for the New York Giants. Whenever you have a quarterback under contract, at the very minimum, ride out the remainder of his contract. If there are issues, assume the issues are to do with everything but the quarterback. In the case of the New York Giants, I feel like they've given Daniel Jones plenty of chances, but at the same time, I feel like Daniel Jones never really had the opportunity to succeed, primarily because of the weapons around him. Maybe having a true #1 wide receiver in Malik Neighbors will be the difference between Daniel Jones turning back the clock to 2022 or just proving that he's not a good player at all whatsoever. Worst case scenario, Daniel Jones flops and you could get your quarterback of the future next year. But for now, I felt like this was a great decision for both Daniel Jones and the New York Giants. A huge winner in this draft class has to be JJ McCarthy, in the sense that he gets to go into one of the most desirable positions in the entire NFL. You get to throw the football to Justin Jefferson, TJ Hawkinson, and Jordan Addison. You have Aaron Jones as your running back, and you have Kevin O'Connell, who has a very quarterback-friendly offense. Now, at the same time, I would have liked to see JJ McCarthy go to the situation that Michael Penix is in. It makes sense for him to sit down and maybe learn behind an experienced QB for a few seasons. But the second best case scenario for McCarthy would have been a scenario where he has all the weapons in the world and an offensive-minded head coach to help him acclimate to the rigors of the NFL. But on top of that, I think the Minnesota Vikings are huge winners, primarily because they were able to trade up to number 17 and fill a huge position of need for themselves. Danielle Hunter left to the Houston Texans, so the Minnesota Vikings' answer to that was trading up to select edge Dallas Turner, who's one of the best edge rushers in the entire NFL draft. Now, the jury's out about whether or not McCarthy will work out for the Minnesota Vikings, but at the very minimum, you could say that the Minnesota Vikings did absolutely everything they could to fill positions of need for themselves, and this is continuing the trend that they've had over the past 2 years, getting younger at key positions. So we mentioned the Minnesota Vikings. What about the team that they traded up with so they could select JJ McCarthy? The New York Jets moved down from number 10 to number 12 and were able to get the perfect prospect to shore up their offensive line. A huge point of emphasis for the New York Jets during the offseason was none other than their offensive line. They signed Morgan Moses and Tyron Smith, but there are still questions about the durability of those two brand new acquisitions. So the New York Jets decided to take a player that I felt like was going to go within the top 3 of the NFL draft in the beginning of this year. Ollie Fashanu, a player that could protect Aaron Rodgers' blind side, who is one of the youngest offensive tackles in the entire NFL, who would have the opportunity to learn behind Tyron Smith and Morgan Moses. It was one of my favorite picks of this entire draft. It protects Aaron Rodgers, which should be at the forefront of importance for the New York Jets, considering the fact that they lost Aaron Rodgers within 4 snaps last year, and also were able to add pick number 129 and 157 by trading down. Another huge winner in this NFL draft is none other than Trevor Lawrence. Finally, the New York Jets select a wide receiver in the first round for Trevor Lawrence, a player that complemented Malik Neighbors at LSU and Brian Thomas Jr. I originally thought the Buffalo Bills might be targeting him, but he went a little bit sooner. The Jaguars were able to trade back in order to get their man as well, and this was the perfect spot for him. So I say Trevor Lawrence is also a huge winner during this NFL draft. I know what you might be thinking.
Mike, there weren't a lot of losers in this year's NFL draft.
And I don't think there are many big losers in this year's NFL draft, not even Drake May. I think probably the biggest loser in this year's NFL draft would probably be the Atlanta Falcons and maybe Kirk Cousins. And that was such a huge loss, and this video is getting so long, that's gonna get its own video within the next 10 hours. It might already be up already. So let me know in the comment section down below, who are the biggest winners and losers of the first round? Did I miss out on anyone? I like to hear what you have to say. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.